Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Everything Co-op. This is Vernon Oakes, and we have two great guests with us this morning. We have Joanne Lechasseur and Zuraidah Hoffman. We're going to talk about the Global Innovation Co-op Summit that's going to be in Montreal, Canada, September 27th, 28th, and 29th of this year. Good morning, ladies. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, let's start off by getting to know a little bit about each of you. So, Joanne, what do you do now? Particularly as it relates to this summit.
Yeah, now I'm one of the co-founders of the Global Innovation Co-op Summit. We started this journey just before COVID, but now we're getting quite better. Well, it's going well. So I'm one of the co-founders.
Fantastic. And how did you get into the co-op world? Did you start off by getting it in school or in your family?
Family, yes, because when I was really young, my father was member of food co-op, and also we had mutual insurance. So it's been a long time. And when I start school, we had what we call in Quebec les caisses scolaires that was founded in 1907, quite long, and it was for us to learn how to spare money, but also how a co-op works. So that was great. So this is my youth background. And after I worked for Desjardins Group, financial group, for almost 28 years. And the last years I was working with them, they asked me if I would like to organize the Quebec Summit that we had then, 2012, 14, and 16. I said, yes, why not? And this is where I start to be really more, involved, helping and organizing and bring co-op together just to have the possibility to work together, to do business together, to see what is the major trends and so on. So this all brought me to create with my other colleagues this Global Innovation Co-op Summit.
Okay. So I just want to go back a little bit because you're in Montreal. You grew up in Montreal, Canada?
No.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Rimouski. This is in the lower St. Lawrence River, okay? And then I moved in the area of Quebec City. I live in Lévis. Lévis is where the first Caisse Populaire was built actually in 1900. So it's been a long time. So I'm living in Rimouski. I was working for Desjardins Group. I have two major centers, Lévis, and the other one is in Montreal, but I always work in Lévis, but moving around.
So what I want to get to, though, is what excites me about what I heard you say about your background is you went to school and you learned about co-ops in school. Now, that doesn't happen so much in the U.S. So is that something in Canada where young people can go to school to learn about the cooperative? And you said managing money.
Yeah, it's not because I learned, I don't know how we say it in English, the first year we go in school, second years, and really the first part, okay? Desjardins Co-op already have had created those cahiers scolaires. So just to show us how to spare money and how we deposit. And it was just coppers then, 1 cent, 10 cents, 5 cents, because, and this we start to learn. So they were educating us on this part. So, and then because, as I said, my father and mother was using already co-ops for food and co-ops for insurance, I was taught about this kind of model where it's bring more people together. So this was more the way I start to be closer of co-ops.
Fantastic.
It's really young.
Yes. Yes. I didn't learn about co-ops. I think I was 55 years old when I learned about co-ops. So that's why I'm so excited when I hear somebody at a younger age. What it would have been like in the first grade in elementary school is the word you're looking for. I could have learned about money. I mean, we spend money, but we don't teach money. And have something to know about how we work together, save together, make money together, solve community problems together in a very early age. That excites me. I would like to see more of it happen throughout the world, particularly here in the U.S. So, but Zuraidah, let's go to you. How did you get into this co-op world?
Not when I was a child, that's for sure. I got into the co-op movement a little over 10 years ago. And it was through the American Electric Co-op movement here in the U.S. through an international organization called NRECA International, which is an entity of NRECA, and I think you know the organization well, Vernon. And NRECA International's mission is to bring electricity to rural communities around the world through the co-op model when possible. So I've been very fortunate that I got to travel to very remote parts of the world in different countries to see how the electric co-op model has helped communities, and also to go into and to tell their stories, really, and to also go into communities where they don't have electricity yet, and how the co-ops, how an electric co-op is going to help them. So I've seen co-op development at its core, which is fantastic, and seeing how the community will come together to form a co-op, basically. So moving on from that, I got introduced to the larger co-op movement, the international co-op movement, through the International Cooperative Alliance, where I was the interim communications director for about 6 months. All happened during COVID, which was a little crazy. And that is how I met Joanne, because I subsequently managed the communications for the World Cooperative Congress in Seoul, Korea, in December 2021. And it was amazing because my network of people that I've gotten to meet, of the community, has grown. And it's still, because we're co-op people, right? So we still stick together. We know each other. And Joanne and I have become friends. And of course, she and her co-founders came up with this idea, and she pulled me in and say, hey, you want to work with me? And of course I said yes, because I can never say no to Joanne. Yeah. So this is how she and I have come together, and I still work I'm very fortunate because I still work with other co-ops because I am an independent consultant, but we're leading up to Montreal now, so Joanne and I speak to each other daily and trying to make sure that this event goes well. So that's a short story.
NRECA, National Rural Electric Cooperative Association for the U.S., and then they have this international group. Mm-hmm. So we have a mutual friend in Dr. Martin Lowry, who has been on the show several times. Yep. And as a matter of fact, I met him at the UN. Was it 2012 was the UN declared 2012 the Year of Cooperatives?
Year of Cooperatives, correct.
And so we had a meeting in 2011 at the UN, and Martin came up and started talking to me. And he has threatened to take me to one of these international communities when they turn the lights on. And he said on air how these linemen, the guys that put the poles in a line up, these big brawly guys, will come back with tears in their eyes when those lights get turned. They tell a story of these lights getting turned on and what that does for the people. Because we just take electricity for granted here.
Yes, we do. And I have to say that the volunteer program is part of what NRECA International does. In fact, it's a small part of what they do, but a very important and visible part, because that's how the American electric co-ops get tied into the international mission. And I have been a few times to see the lights get turned on. And Vernon, I have to say, since I've worked with NRECA International, I have never seen more grown men cry.
Okay.
So, yes. So Martin is indeed correct.
I would probably be one of those grown men crying when you see people,
yes,
as Martin described it, you see people so excited to have light at night or dusk or dark, so they don't have to read by candlelight or whatever. Okay.
Yeah. So that has really formed my foundation for the love for co-ops, because I've seen at a very, very ground level on how that light bulb, and no pun intended, but that light bulb goes off in their head about, you know what, this can really help us. So it's been a great journey for me.
Fantastic. So let's now talk about Global Innovation Co-op Summit. And what is your role, Zuraidah, in the summit?
So my role is, in the simplest terms, communications. I provide all the communication support for Joanne and the team. And unofficially, I say that an important role for me is to help Joanne and the team really get their message across, and to really help the world, or the co-op world and co-op friends, not just co-ops, understand the important and really cool stuff that they're doing. That's, in the simplest terms, that's my job.
Okay.
And to have fun.
Yeah. Joanne, what's the theme of the summit?
The theme of this, the main theme actually is about Act Now for a circular and digital future, the cooperative way. We want to do it the cooperative way, that's it. And why Act? It's because our last event in Paris, our participants and also our advisory group said, okay, we should stop to just talk and just listen. We should start really to act on something. So that's why in Montreal, this is what we will try to achieve with the participant. It's to act. So, and why circular? Why digital?
We can't get in there right now. We're going to take our first break. And you got it. Act now to lead a circular and digital future the cooperative way. We'll be right back, everybody. We'll talk more about this, what that's all about, and what this summit will look like. We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial.
News Talk 1450 WOL AM, where information is power.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. The program is Everything Cooperative. We have Joanne Lechasseur and Zuraidah Hoffman, our guests today, and we're talking about a summit that's going to happen in Montreal at the end of this month, the Global Innovation Co-op Summit. And the theme, which Joanne told us about right before we took break, is to act now. And she said this came out of the conference in Paris, that didn't want a summit where people just got up and talked and folks took notes and got up and left. They wanted to get to where people will act now in sort of a leadership role on the circular economy and digital future, the cooperative way. Okay, so how do we... This is how you came up with your theme and what you're doing. Joanne, what does this, to me, you're trying to get a lot accomplished. How are you going about, how have you set up the conference? What I'm trying to get to is you having plenary segments, okay? What's the first group of segments that you're going to be talking about?
It will be about the circular, okay? So, because it's something that people wants to hear or wants to do to act on this. This is what, on the back of our team of the founders, as I said, we have this advisory group, but we also have a scientific team. One of them is Raphael Ziegler, who worked for HEC being our co-host of our event. And what is really important now is to talk about circular economy and what is happening on the world for all the environment problems that we're having. So this first segment, we will go just deeping in this, to understand, to see what is coming up, what cooperatives are doing, what they should do, and so on. And after this major theme that is Let's Get Circular, we gonna split in four sessions, actually, 4 workshops, where we're gonna dip in a little bit more the themes themselves.
And
okay?
Before you go into the workshops, I would like to talk a little bit about those. But Zuraidah, can you tell us what do you mean by circular? What is this circular?
The circular economy?
Yes.
Is to basically, it's closely tied to the Sustainable Development Goals, right? To make sure that we all, to use the word again, to act in our lives, whether personal or professional, in our business, in a way that can really lessen the negative impact on the environment, whether it's recycling, whether it's reusing, whether it's, as what I've learned also, is to refuse, to lessen what we put into the landfill, and to really incorporate that into your business plans and your operations. And it sort of starts at the top, but it really does have to be, for all of us to be part of the circular economy, we really have to incorporate this into our lives. On my level, and we all do this, we separate our trash, we get things recycled from a business level to make sure that they don't create a more negative impact on the environment. So all these sessions, if you look at the program, whether it's the plenary or the workshops, it really dives into different parts of the circular energy, whether it's a community, whether it's energy, education, which I know you're pretty into. Does that answer the question, or at least give a little more clarity?
The circular economy, to me, I look at, you go out into the woods and you cut down a tree. And then you take that tree into a plant and you make boards out of them, 2x4s. And then you take that 2x4 and you build a house. And then people live in that house, and at some point the house gets old or something and you take the house down. Then what do you do with those 2x4s? Do you take them to the landfill, or do you reuse them? What do you do with it so that
you call a carpenter friend, say, hey, why don't you build some tables from this? Or let's build a shed in the backyard. Or, sometimes, especially from the old houses, right, Vernon, the wood is, of high quality and still very reusable. So, just don't burn it and toss it in the landfill. Just keep it going. I'll give you another example. Cell phones, right? We all have our cell phones, and our kids always want new ones. And instead of making phones, as an example, potentially from a business standpoint, instead of having companies just reissuing these new phones, why not make them last longer? Why not, create better technology so they can do different things, and so, the batteries or whatever else that goes into a phone. So instead of having more phones into the landfill, how about we make them better quality so they last longer? That's just one example.
And people are taking their phones now. Some people are, you can send them to places and then they will refurbish them and either reuse them. Send it to people, sell them at a cheaper price and reuse them. This sort of reusing, recycling, that's the circular part to me. And
refusing.
And what?
And refusing, meaning saying, I don't need a new phone.
Yeah, I like that one too. And my example of going to the woods and cutting down a tree, it is also replacing that tree by planting another tree, so that you're always, this cycle is always happening. Because when you cut down the trees, all kinds of things can happen with mudslides and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot we can do in this circular. And so what you're doing, let's talk about some of the sessions now. I know who would like to talk about some, let's get circular or just transition to the circular economy. What kinds of things do you hope to get accomplished? And what I really want to get to is, how do you get to act now? That part of this, you're having these sessions, but then what do you expect people to do when they get this information?
Okay, just to take an example, and Zuraidah, maybe you can complete also with your own, because Zuraidah will be also facilitating of the session in this main theme about let's get circular. But if we take as an example the first one, circular business model for co-ops, okay, it will happen at the same time. We have 4 parallel sessions, so we have four different themes that will be going at the same time. Okay, I will say it this way. Okay, so if we take like circular business model for cooperative, our friend and co-host Raphael Ziegler will be with his group. They will be presenting what is the main models actually, and how do they support intercooperation, because this is also something that we always want to look in. How co-ops can work together to create more circular economy, okay? So he will be digging this. There will be panelists, 2-3 panelists. In this case, he have 3 with himself, and they will dig in more just to bring out the example. What is the trends? What should we focus on? What is the models that are working now, okay? So, and they will have like maybe 30 minutes to just bring out all what they have to say on this. And then people are going to get to work together. The participants, they will be sat around tables and they will discuss among themselves, but they will be guided. There will be a table leader that will help them, guide them with questions, ask, what came out from what the panelists just said? What came out from this? What is the real issues that we have? Do we have those own issues in our country or in our co-op or in our region, depending, okay? And what is the leverage that we heard some of the leverage by the panelists, but us, what leverage do we have? How can we use them? How can we participate together to make better leverage of it, okay? And finally, what is the opportunity that we think those participants that will be set together? Is there opportunities that we can work more together from one country to the other country? Is there a way for us to do more together, to cooperate with other co-ops, but could be also with non-co-ops, because we know that we are an ecosystem. We need to work together. So this is what we want to bring out, those discussions, and then the facilitator of the workshop will come back on stage with the other facilitator of the other workshops, just to bring out, highlight a few ideas. And from all the work that we know, we will have altogether 12 workshops, 12 possibilities. So all this will be made as a report that we're going to give back to co-ops so they can have something to take away and work with. And eventually, what we want, and probably you're going to ask me the question later on, but we're going to try to create also community of practice.
Okay. Great place to stop right now. And when we come back, Zuraidah, I would like for you to talk about your session and what you hope to get out of that. We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial.
Talk 1450 WOLAM, where information is power.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Program is Everything Co-op. And we have Zuraidah Hoffman and Joanne on with us today talking about the Global Innovation Co-op Summit, which is going to happen in Montreal at the end of this month, September 27th, 28th, and 29th. And before we took the break, Joanne was explaining circular economy in one of the panel discussions. So it's going to be Zuraidah. It will be leading, facilitated one of these panels. So Zuraidah, can you tell us what is this panel and what you expect that will come out of that so people can go home and act now?
Well, we can hope that they will really get excited about stuff, right? So I'm hosting two different sessions, and one of the sessions is a plenary session, not a workshop, as to what Joanne was explaining earlier. And this is more of a high-level discussion about that really covers the circular economy, which relates to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. And Joanne, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's 17 of them. And the goal is for these Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved and completed by 2030. And I believe this year the UN will be discussing where we are in the midpoint, if my brain serves me correctly. So the session, one of the plenary sessions that I'll be facilitating is titled to how co-ops can propel their leadership. How can they use their cooperative leadership to use a tool that this particular group has developed called the Sustainable Development Performance Indicators. And it sounds very academic, but really what it is just a way to measure how the Sustainable Development Goals, or how co-ops and how organizations really can measure how they're doing and how they're achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So on this particular panel, we have 4 people who are very much involved in producing reports and publishing reports on these, on the SDPIs. I hate using acronyms, but it is a mouthful. The Sustainable Development Performance Indicators. And the discussion will be, I hope, will be their thoughts and views about where we are, and where co-ops are, and how co-ops can really not just do this, make it better for other co-ops, but also for the community as a whole. What is coming up for the future, and also hopefully to ask some questions. People will ask questions about what else can people do. So that sort of in a nutshell, and Joanne, I may not be covering it all, but this is, so feel free to add in, but this is sort of generally, and I'm excited about it because this happened in Paris as well. And I believe it was Paul Hazen from OCDC who said that, and we all know this, Vernon, you've said this too, I'm sure, is that SDGs and what it represents is really part of the co-op DNA. Co-ops, it's just naturally, this is what we do. We take care of the planet, we take care of our community, we take care of our people. That's basically what it is. Mm-hmm. So, the second panel that I'm facilitating is tied to this, and it's tied to one of the SDGs, and of course I can't remember which one it is now. It's to do with energy, is to be able to provide access to energy to people. And so the title of that session is Community Energy. And as I said earlier when I was introducing myself, the world of electricity or energy is dear to my heart, because I've seen how electricity can really impact people's lives. But what's interesting about this particular panel is it's not just to talk about, people think about energy and the circular economy or sustainable development goals, they automatically go to renewable energy. That's the best way to go. Whether it's solar, whether it's hydro, that's automatically what people go to. And one of my panelists will be Dan Waddle, who is the Senior Vice President for NRECA International. He was also one of the Cooperative Hall of Fame inductees from last year for his work. But the other two panelists that I have are very different from his background. Michaela Cryer is from Unity. And she's involved in community-owned energy in the UK, so from a developed country. And I have to round it out is Thomas Balance he's a professor come from the Netherlands, so he's coming from the academic background to explore these things. So it's going to be what I'm hoping to achieve from this is really the discussion about, yes, renewable energy is definitely the way to go because climate change is real, but also it's not entirely possible all the time for all people. And in countries where Dan and his team work, in many countries in Africa, in South Central America, and in Asia, places that I've been to, renewable energy is certainly the goal, but it's not the best or affordable way for people to get electricity to get them out of poverty, for instance. So it's a very interesting balance. So take that into the workshops. I'm really curious to see how, because we really don't know how it's going to go, right? We don't know what kind of people, what kind of questions they'll have, and so. From a realistic standpoint, I hope people can really take away something concrete to address the reality of the challenges, not just, hey, renewable energy is the best way to go for everybody. So we'll see.
So it is.
I hope that answers the question.
Depending on what part of the world they're at, what their economy's like.
Sure.
They might need fossil fuel.
Exactly.
And if they're someplace else, they may need wind turbines or solar panels. It depends on where they're at and what they're trying to do to bring out of poverty, to help their economy, to help the people in their economy. And so you don't know what people are going to come up with. So you can't tell me now what tasks people are going to act now on, because that will be developed in each of the sessions.
No, but I can tell you what I hope for, and I'll speak for myself on my session, is because of my background in having been exposed to energy access. That's where I started, right? And then having been exposed to the bigger cooperative movement, where people work really hard to get renewable energy in homes and in communities. So it would, for me, my hope is for somehow there's an overlap, and a lot of times it could be funding, for instance, right? In many countries in Africa who need electricity, to build a co-op, one of the biggest challenges is funding, because the electric co-op model is not, it takes a long time for co-ops to show success. So maybe there are ideas that can, and potential sources for funding, or just ideas on how to help people sort of get more on the level playing field, I guess. That's my hope.
Okay.
But you're right. Don't know. We'll have to see.
Yes, but what I got from what you want in those developing countries, under-resourced countries, that maybe there's some funding mechanisms that could happen so that, like NRECA or the rural electric co-ops in the U.S. that got started in the 30s, the U.S. government did the funding, and they got paid back. Yeah. But how might there be some funding that would come out of this in such a way that these developing countries could get the electricity or the energy they need and pay that back? But it'll take a while. It won't happen in the first 5 years.
And through the co-op model. Yeah. Definitely not. Yeah, because then you get into the long process of regulatory, issues, but at the very minimum, we can talk about it and see what people have to say.
So there's energy, but you're also going to be looking at circular in health and in housing. You're covering a lot, Joanne. You've got a lot going on here.
That's Joanne.
And that's all in the circular economy. Let's talk a little bit about, and maybe, Zuraidah, you can speak to the digital part about it. What are you trying to get at in the digital world?
Well, this is a tricky one, isn't it, Joanne? Because I wouldn't say tricky. That's a negative way to describe it. I always say that people talk about digital being the future. I think digital is here today. Look at us now. you know.
The idea there is more to get, I will say, what is the best from the digital. But in the same time, we know that with AI and artificial intelligence, it could be tricky. So this is things that we need to discuss among ourselves in co-ops. It could impact our governance. It could impact the way we do business. It's impacting, actually. As Zuraidah said, we are in it now. It's not just the future. We are in it now, but we need to work to make sure that it will not impact us negatively, but really use what is the best in this. So this is what is about this digital, all this section of the program. We need to discuss among ourselves, to push it more, and to see what we can do with it.
Okay. Well, we're in it, like you said. We're on Zoom. I'm in my apartment in my co-op unit in D.C., and I've got a piece of equipment that goes directly to the radio station, so it could sound like I'm in the studio, and
Yep.
your audio is going into a mixer, and then that mixer takes it over to this piece of equipment that takes it to the studio. It's all technology. We're doing it now.
Yeah.
So and I'd like to add to that. I mean, COVID forced us all. I mean, we were getting there, right? Mm-hmm. But COVID just made us get there faster. We had to much faster. But what I've heard from people too, because again, I'm in the world of communication. I write a lot, and I write about stuff. I have to write about stuff I don't know much about. So I do a lot of the research and I talk to people. And the issue of governance and engagement is interesting to me, because I'm all about, engagement. How do you engage your co-op members? How do you get people closer together? And the digital channels has made it possible, yet at the same time also there could be a negative side to that, right? So, and some people have different opinions about, whether it's good or bad. From a governance standpoint, I can't completely wrap my head around that yet either, because we have our general assemblies, we have our meetings, we have in person, and that's what co-op communities are all about. But there are positive and negatives to that as well. So I think it's going to be really interesting for people to finally just come out and and share and what the challenges might be. Again, it also depends what kind of co-op you are. And what you do to support your community. So, and of course, the artificial intelligence stuff, it's been around for a while.
Before you go to AI, I want to go back and make sure it's clear when you talk about governance, you're talking about the governance of the co-op. Okay, because, here in the U.S., we just had the Republican debate, and they're talking about the governance. So when you first said governance, I'm going to political part, but no, you're talking about the governance of the business,
of the co-op
business.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a model. What cooperative government models? How is that going to change?
Because there is people elected, where all those elections work when they decide who is coming in, and all about also. What we are with COVID just now, Zuraidah's told it, that most co-ops could not have their meeting together, they could not see each other, so they had to put in a digital way to still work together, to still take decisions together and protect those decisions. And this is also all the part about our co-ops have some data. How do we protect those data now? So this is about the governance of co-ops.
Of co-ops.
Of co-ops.
Okay. So what we've talked about so far is the leadership of co-ops and in the circular economy and digital world that we live in now, and what the future will look like. So we're going to take our final break, and when we come back, I really want to talk about this act now. It's the future part of this. What can you see, and how will you work to make sure that people are acting and that we are directing our future, not just letting it happen? We'll be right back.
News Talk 1450 WOLAM, where information is power.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes, and the program is Everything Co-op. We're talking about the Global Innovation Co-op Summit, which is going to be happening in Montreal the end of this month. And ladies, the National Co-op Bank has been our sponsor for 10 years. This coming October, we will be 10 years on air, and NCB has been our financial sponsor and main cheerleader, and always introducing us to people and trends in the co-op world. NCB's mission is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, especially in low-income communities, by providing innovative financial and related services. So, Joanne, I know you're in Canada, and Zuraidah, you're in the U.S., and you started off in NRECA, and I know NRECA and NCB work together. And a lot of this conference, you're talking about Principle 6, cooperation among co-ops. And Chuck Snyder, before he passed, he was the president of NCB. He had a P6 sort of group working on how we get together. So when you start talking future, Joanne, how do you see getting that the information out of this conference will help cooperators work together, this P6, cooperation among co-ops?
Actually, the idea of creating this event came from the idea that co-ops still need to meet, to discuss, and build things together. It's the base, okay? So it starts with this simple idea. But then because when we had this Quebec summit, people were meeting and they could build new business together now. So they came back and they asked us, why don't you do this? So we said, yes, we're going to try. So that is what we are building now. But from there, they really want to act. So this idea of acting comes from the way we will act. It will be actually, as we said, we create those workshops for people talk together, really talk and decide and see what they can do. They can meet, but we're gonna have those reports. And what we really want to create after is those community of practice organized that will help people from, if I say I am in Japan and this other lady is in Australia and this other one is in Canada, and we think that is really important to talk about, let's say, we will organize collectively. I find this idea of Australia is a good idea. How can I do what they're doing? How can I adapt what they are doing? So this community of practice will bring people together and start to build maybe new ideas to try to help to promote more what co-ops can do among themselves, what they can do in other countries, how they can help each other. So this is the way for us to build the future, to bring out what was said, to try to bring people to work together, to push even what we're doing. And at our next event, then what will be built or what will be said in those community of practice, then we can bring in our next event, okay, what is moving now? What people said? What is happening? So we're going to always bring those new ideas to our cooperative, all sectors, because it's not just a specific sector, it's all the sector, health, housing, agriculture, food, and everything. So this will be the way for us to try to help to support the future activities that co-ops want to do.
Okay, the next event. This one is September 2023. So will it be 2024 or 2025?
Probably 2025, because to build one program like we're doing now, it takes time. It takes time to identify the content. It takes time to identify the panelists to work with us. And what we want to do between is create those community of practice. So this will also give us fuel for our next event. So this is the way we're going to link those. But next year, we're going to probably work more on the community of practice to bring people together at one other level. And not necessarily physically, but more like, I will say virtually, okay, through webinars or things, or as we do a Zoom or anything, those kind of, I would say, technology way to bring people together, and we're going to build on this.
So, Zuraidah, when you take your energy example and you're in this panel and you all are discussing things, you'll come up with tasks that people in Japan or Australia or Canada or anywhere else, Africa, Latin America, things that people can do. Okay, so this is, I don't know how many you'll come up with, 1, 2, 5 different things that people can do. What do you see once you get these tasks that people can do? How do you see people reporting back or working together either in 2024 or in preparation of a conference in 2025? What do you see the future looking like? How do you direct that?
Well, how about we take the first step first, right? Which is after when all these hopefully fantastic ideas come at the end of the 90 minutes, and I'm going to have to wrap my head around all that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take whatever it is, and I think Joanne said this earlier. We're going to go report back to a plenary session with the other facilitators, right? And we're going to present.
Right.
My 5 and their 2 or their whatever it is. And then at the end of the event, there will be a report on everything, right? And Joanne, you got to help me out here. So the report here then will outline all these different tasks that people can do. So in my session, in the workshop session, let's say we have 20, 30 attendees, and they're interested in the energy section of the conference, let's just say. So they will take what comes from that part of the report, and let's say somebody needs funding or somebody needs ideas on how to implement more renewable or community energy. They can take from that and go home and say, hey, we have this problem. This is how we can fix it. So that ideally, right? I'm simplifying it quite a bit, I think. But Joanne, I think that's ideally what people will do, and then continue to talk to each other through this community of practice. And then in 2 years, hopefully they'll say, this is what we did, or this didn't work, or this was fantastic, either way. But the whole point of things is just keep it going and stop talking, just doing, I think is basically what we're hoping.
So Zuraidah, from what I got from you, if your group came up with 5 things that they wanted to implement, you would have this and there would be a report, there would be a panel discussion, so you would present out what you all have come up with. Then people will go do. They go out.
Hopefully.
Okay. And maybe in these communities of practitioners, this practice, this communities of action people, there may be some reports back on here's what we've accomplished, this is what we tried, we accomplished this, we didn't accomplish that, this is what we found out, these are lessons learned. So that when you develop your conference for 2025, Joanne, you and the founders, when you do this for 2025, you have this data to start off your conference and to set up your panels and all of that. You'd already have something set up. Is that did I get that right, Zuraidah and Joanne?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
And Joanne, who are some of the founders? You're one of the founders of this. Who else?
Yeah. The other founders, we have Jean-Louis Bancel. He's a French guy from Paris. He's former president of Crédit Cooperative, who works a lot and they support a lot of new ideas, innovative ideas. And we have also Luis Branco. Luis is the CEO of Wex Business, who organize every year a huge event in Brazil for co-ops. The World Co-op Management, okay? And it's a lot of, I think it's over 1,000 participants every year. So, and they bring speakers from everywhere. And then we have Cristina Procopio, who is the former head of communication for the World Expo that was organized before with the collaboration of ICA. And also my friend, Stéphane Bertrand. Stéphane was the general director of the Quebec Summit. We work along together. We are good friends. And we are the 5 founders.
Okay.
That's it.
And Zuraidah, would you give people the web page if they want to register? Where do they go to register?
You can find everything you need to know about how to register, how to get there, and a travel guide on the website, which is globalinnovation.coop or .coop.
Okay.
And everything is easily accessible that way.
Ladies, thank you so very much for sharing with us. That looked exciting. If there's any way I could get there, I will see you guys on the 27th. If not, I'll get those reports. I'll go to globalinnovation.coop. Thank you, everybody. And
thank you, Vernon.
We'll see you next Thursday. Please live cooperatively.
News Talk 1450 WOLAM, where information is power.